everyone, and welcome to Podcastros' newest series, Podcastros Top 10. Today, Top 10 Worst Military Blunders. Number 10, Battle of Little Bighorn. The leader of this, let's say, historical battle was Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. This dude, right here, also known by Custer's Last Stand, began from June 25th, 1876 to June 26th, 1876, between the combined forces of the Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribes, a total of 3,000 native soldiers, against the 7th Cavalry of the United States of America with a total of 700 soldiers. There's a wide discussion of what cost Custer the victory, but the two main reasons I picked are: A. Instead of waiting for the other generals, like General Alfred Terry or General George Cooke, he decided to march forward still, balls of steel. And B. He split his forces up into thirds. Not only did he know his cavalry was catastrophically smaller than the native people's army, he thought if they became even smaller again, they would be able to surround them easier, somehow. These mistakes cost them the lives of over 200 soldiers and over 60 wounded. 4 of the killed were native, and 2 of the wounded were native. Number 9. Gallipoli Campaign. The Gallipoli Campaign took place during the First World War in Gallipoli Peninsula from February 17, 1915 to January 1916. The Allies, Britain, France, and Russia, I quote, sought to weaken the Ottoman Empire, end quote. They figured by taking control of the Turkish Straits, this would expose the Ottoman capital enough for them to successfully land and start the attack. Unfortunately, that's not why it's on this list. The Allies began their attack February 19th, but due to severe weather was forced to withdraw. On March 18th, they resumed their quest to take over the Turkish land and stop the pesky Ottoman Empire. Well, not exactly. The battle was going great. The Allies were close to the Alexandria beach, but it was not long until 3 Allied battleships were destroyed, forcing them to retreat again. Number 8. Battle of Flodden Edge. August 5th, 1513, 7,000 Scots set out to Northumberland, pillaging farms, taking anything of value, and burning everything else. On September 4th, 1513, King James VI, with a bigger army of Scots this time, had taken over Flodden Edge, south of Branxton, so the Earl of Surrey sent a letter, I quote, seeking to join you in a fight, Friday between noon and 3 p.m. at Millfield, end quote. James declined, writing back, I quote, it is not fitting for an earl to seek to command a king, end quote. With that being said, the earl had 2 choices: embarrass the hell out of King Henry and deny the battle on Flodden Edge, or do the battle. That Friday, they met up like they promised. It began with King James shooting his gun downhill at the opposing English army. And with that, they rushed down the hill, determined to beat the English. But at the end of the hill was a marsh pit designed to separate them out of formation. King James's corpse had been found with 2 arrows stuck in him. This marked the end of the Scottish invasion, with Surrey losing 4,000 soldiers and Scotland losing between 5,000 to 20,000 soldiers. Mad loss for Scotland. Number 7. Charge of the Light Brigade. Alright, let's jump a couple hundred years into the future, shall we? During the Battle of Balaclava in October 25th, 1854, Lord Fitzroy James Henry Somerset I, Baron Raglan, sent out a light brigade, a small group of soldiers with light weaponry and armor to stop Russia from taking guns from the Turks. But due to miscommunication, the light brigade went towards a squadron that was well equipped and most definitely did not have light shit on. When they arrived, there were so many gunshots, they had no choice but to retreat. Unfortunately, there were still 118 soldiers killed, 127 wounded, and about 60 taken as prisoners. Number 6. Napoleon/Hitler's fail-safes of Russia. For this one, I had to put 2 different ones, and it's only because they are 2 completely different people, 100 years apart, but Russia beat them both the exact same way. For Napoleon, it was June 24th, 1812. The French army was halfway through western Russia after destroying Barclay de Tolly's army and Pyotr Bagration, who combined had 180,000 to 220,000 soldiers. The Russian army, now under command of Chief Mikhail Kutuzov, realized if they decided to retreat and burn any resources the French army could use, they wouldn't be able to feed such a large amount of soldiers. By November, the change in the weather and lack of food caused Napoleon's numbers to drop by 49,000 soldiers. Come December, Napoleon left his army to continue losing the battle while he sipped cocktails in Paris. Within 3 more days, 20,000 more people died from the cold or starvation, and the remaining returned with a loss under their belt. At the end of the battle, Napoleon went from 400,000 soldiers, 150,000 horses, and 25,000 wagons to only 120,000 soldiers. Hitler was during Operation Barbarossa, which happened in 1940. Russia did the exact same thing, except Hitler attacked during winter, which was more stupid in my opinion. Number 5. The Austrians at the Battle of Karansebes. This one is kinda like every drunk guy ever, not gonna lie. On September 21st to 22nd, 1788, an army of around 100,000 Austrians set up camp at Karansebes, then sent out a party of hussars to cross the Timmy's River scouting for the Ottoman army. With no sign of any Ottoman troops, they decided to return to camp, but ran into a group that offered to sell them schnapps. Not long after, an infantry crossed over demanding alcohol for themselves as well. In the heat of the moment, one of the soldiers pulled out their guns and yelled, "Turks! Turks! Turks!" The army, having been made up of Austrians, Croats, and Italians, neither knew a single word the other spoke. Not only that, but things only got worse when one of the generals yelled, "Halt! Halt!" which some, never speaking a word of German in their life, thought was Allah, Allah. By the time the actual Ottoman force arrived, 2 days later, they were able to take over the city without a bloodbath. Well, at least on their part. Number 4. 1991 Persian Gulf War. 6 months into the Gulf War, or the Persian Gulf War, came the Battle of Khafji, the first ground engagement of the Gulf War. The Iraqi began their attack in the night of January 29th. At 8 p.m., the U.S. Marines on post noticed a lot of armored cars, like way more than a second ago when they looked. So they tried to contact the higher-ups and no response. After half an hour, they finally got a response. Another hour later, and troops showed up and got permission to fire on what was believed to be an Iraqi tank. That was the first friendly fire of the Persian Gulf War. Not long after, a group of A-10 ground-attacking aircraft showed up, but couldn't make out the enemies. So can you guess what they did? I'll give you guys a second. They dropped a bunch of flares. Yep, 11 people killed by friendly fire. 0 by the Iraqi. Number 3. Texas Revolution, friendly fire. On both sides? On March 1st, 1836, a group of Texan volunteers were coming to Gallup to reinforce the Alamo garrison, but instead, once they showed up, everyone, only being able to see their shadows, thought they were a group of attacking Mexicans and opened fire. Luckily, only one of them were wounded. Over in Mexico on March 5th to 6th, 1836, due to the fact that they did an overnight assault, in addition to recruiting rookies, most of them just had an itchy trigger finger. And even after the battle was finished, if they saw any shadows move, they would think it was an enemy and shoot on sight. Number 2. Battle of Barnet. Technically, this is the first recorded incident with friendly fire. April 14th, 1471. The Lancastrians chase the House of York into the woods. Oxford goes in for the flank, but decides to pull back. As they fall back, the Lancastrians see Oxford and his star with rays, which he mistakes as the Yorkist badge sun and splendor due to how foggy it was, so they rain down arrows onto Oxford. Oxford's men withdrew from the battle, cursing the Lancastrians, and the Lancastrians lost the battle immediately. Finally, our number 1, the Battle of Agincourt. On October 25th, 1415, the French army had high hopes. They were better equipped and had a much larger army than the English, or so they thought. They didn't realize the accuracy, not to mention distance you could shoot with an English longbow. Also, the wooden spikes the English soldiers strategically placed meant that the soldiers on foot had to go around separating the French army and making them vulnerable to any attack, costing them the battle within hours. Well everyone, that was Top 10 Worst Military Blunders. If you like our new Top 10 series, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below any topics you guys want us to do next. And until next time, peace out, everyone.